Do you want to make a beautiful doll of color and do you want to learn step by step how to do it? This is the right place. We're going from this to something like this. This is video number 2. If you haven't seen the first video, please click here and watch it because it has all the basic elements you're going to need before starting to paint. Okay, so we're going to start with the base layers of the skin. And as you know, skin is translucent. So there's not one skin color. For example, look at my skin here. Can you see it? You can see like veins through it and blood vessels and all types of colors. And with babies of color, it's exactly the same. So I'm going to teach you when to apply which color, because the order in which you paint matters. In some places the skin is thicker and in other places the skin is thinner. So the skin color changes when the skin is thin or when the skin is thick. For example, if you look under my eyes, there is the skin is very thin underneath my eyes, but on my cheeks the skin is thicker. This is why underneath my eyes my skin is more blue. And it's not because the skin itself is blue, but it's because the blood vessels underneath it shine through. And that is the same with babies. And I'm going to teach you everything about the blood vessels, about the skin, so that you can make a very realistic baby. Let's get started and let's get right into it. But wait, in this lesson we're going to use many reference pictures to so I can explain to you and you can see at the same time what I mean with blood vessels, what I mean with veins, where you can see different colors and where the skin is thicker. If you want those reference pictures in high quality in your email, send me your email and I will send them to you, or download my ebook and all the pictures and all the exercises we are talking about in this video will be in there, and that will make things a lot easier because I want you to see what I mean and not just to copy down what I say. So now let's get into it. There are two most important things you have to remember. One is the difference between dark and light, and two is the difference between bluish tones and red and yellow tones. So in the last video I've given you some homework to practice recognizing dark and light. Do you still remember? So we've searched for dark areas and light areas in the face, and we are going to use that today. So grab your sketchbook and look back at your homework and see the differences between dark and light before we're going to start painting on your doll. If you have a reference photo and you still struggle with finding dark or light, you can heighten the contrast of your reference photo, or you can turn the picture black and white. That makes it a lot easier to recognize dark and light. Let's get started. Number one, the thing we're going to first focus on is dark and light. The dark and light parts of the face are the most important because they are going to show you depth. And depth is more important than color in the first layers. So we first want to focus on depth and then we can add color. So check out your reference photo and remember how we used to line the darker areas and the lighter areas in our last exercise. I'm showing you here a black and white picture of our reference photo of Dear Little Sarah and our reference photo of Dear Little Sarah. You can see here that the dark areas are different from the light areas. So what's also important to see is that this part of the face is in shadow. And in here you might think that the cheek is just as dark as the forehead. But remember our white window exercise. If you only look at the dark part of the face, you will still see that the forehead, in comparison with the cheek, is a lot darker. And even the tone, do you see the tone that is different And we're going to touch on this in our next part of the lesson, but you can see already a little bit that this is way more red and this is way more yellow. Okay, so we've seen now that this is darker than the cheek. And also what's important to distinguish is where the light of the camera or the sun hits. So you can see this is a part where it's super light, and which is a little bit unnatural. You can see a light spot here as well and here as well, and obviously on the lips, but it doesn't matter right now. So these parts, these three parts, are also a little bluish, and these are not actually in the skin. It's just a picture that made them appear. If we stop looking at the darkest part in shadow, stop looking at the artificial light, and look at the part of the face that is a natural light, this is the actual color of the face. So do you see now that it matters a lot where the picture is taken? So if your reference picture is taken outside, there might be a sunspot on the face. The color of the face depends on the outside. So that's why we often use multiple reference pictures to see what the skin exactly looks like. So here again, we can see a darker part here and here, the edge of the mouth, and the cheek here, especially this part, is lighter. We can see that in the ears as well, because that's important too. Inside the ears, it's darker, and then the part on top is lighter. You're talking a lot, but this is important information. Okay, then let's get started. Remember our biggest, darkest parts and the lightest parts. We never use black, because when we use black, the baby will appear grayish and not so alive. So in this other reference photo, you will also see that this is a little bit of a lighter baby, but you can see here that the forehead is a very different type of color than the cheeks. To start with getting the basic depth, we always start with blue. To get brown, you will have blue, red, and yellow. But the darkest part, we will start with blue. So first, let's see, is the forehead is the darkest part here. But this little part is light. So this will be the shape we are going to paint dark first. And because it's a big area, we're going to start with our biggest brush, because that's just the easiest way to get started. Just a tiny edge of blue, and then I'm going to clean my brush. We're going to use this piece of paper to make sure that it's translucent enough. So in the middle, a little bit of matte medium. This is more than enough. Dry the brush, because we don't want water in there. And then just a little edge of blue and a lot of matte medium. See what I'm doing? Just a tiny bit of blue and a lot of matte medium. We drag the matte medium to the place of the blue. You can use the matte medium to make it translucent, but we're not overusing it. Okay, now you see I had too much blue, so I need more matte medium. But even though it looks like a lot of blue, it was still a little bit. So the real amount will be about 2 to 5% blue and 95% matte medium. And see how I mix it very thoroughly, because we don't want stripes on our doll. To check the transparency and to see if there are no stripes, you can paint on a piece of paper that already has something written on it. Now you can see it's translucent, and we want it to be at least this translucent. So once again, this is what we are going to see. And we will start with the forehead, because we just saw that the forehead is darker than the rest of the body. And when you paint, with this paint, you want to be very quick to make sure that it doesn't get blotchy. So get your sponge and dab it off. You're not really dabbing it off, but you dab it in and you make sure that there are no stripes in it. So you're like, oh, I cannot really see it. Well, that is exactly what you want. You want to barely see a difference, but just a little bit of a bluish glow. So we've done the forehead, we made it blue now, and I didn't paint the whole face at once, the back of the head either, because then it would have been dry already. So then we go back to the head, the rest of the head and behind the ears, because I'm telling you that part behind the ears, the skin is actually thinner, so you will see the blood vessels through it more, which gives a little bit of a bluish glow, but also makes it a bit darker because we're now working on darks and lights. So one more part. So, and behind the ear. And as you see in the reference photo, the neck is also a little bit darker than the rest of the face. So let's make the neck a little bluish again. And yes, it's barely visible because it's just for the depth. And then get all the stripes out and dab it beautifully. Okay, so the inside of the eyes, you can see it's almost like she's wearing a little bit of eyeliner. We're going to create that too, but with a smaller brush. This brush is thick in the beginning, and towards the end there is a little point to make smaller brush strokes. This is amazing for inside the eyes. You can see that this darling has a bit of almost eyeliner looking color there. So let's make that a little darker. And again, the color should be barely visible. There's a bit of a bluish tone. And also underneath the eyes, it's darker. So we're going to paint that as well. Okay, then around the nose, you can see it's a little darker. So we're going to paint that. And I want you to make sure that you barely have anything on your brush. If there is too much paint on there, you can use a dry brush and dab it out, because we don't want the creases to fill up with paint. And the inside of the nose, as you can see in the reference photo, is darker as well. So we're going to put a little bit of blue in there. Around the mouth, there is the skin is darker too. So we're going to create that. And I want you to not paint on the top of the of here, because there you can see it's a little bit lighter, but on the inside, when the skin is deeper and lower, there is a little bit of a darker color. And we also see that underneath the lips it's a bit darker as well, and in the edges of the corners of the mouth. In the reference photo, her mouth is open, but when the mouth is closed, the insides is deeper, so we are going to make a little bit of depth in there as well. Oh no, we forgot this part of the eyes. We done the inside of the eyes, but we forgot the inner edge of the eyelid, because we can see that the eyelid itself is a bit darker too. So if you barely see anything, that's exactly what you want. Remember that the inside of the ear is darker as well, as we just saw on the reference photo. So just the inside. Don't paint the outside. Here we are. Okay, next we're going to look at the reddish tones in the face. And to get there, we will use a little bit of Naphthol Crimson, a little bit of Nails Red. It's more of a purple color, as you can see. Together, these colors will make a reddish pink. So 50% Nails Red and 50% Naphthol Crimson. 95% medium. And only about 5% of your initial paint mixture. Let's check the translucency. First on something. Okay, it's still too bright. See that? You want it to be barely visible. So we're going to have some extra matte medium. And mix it thoroughly. Let's see on this paper now. It is a bit bright. I think it's okay, but you don't want it to be brighter than this. You want it to be barely visible. The most noticeable red in this picture are the lips. So just a little tiny glimpse of red you're going to paint on the lips. Always make sure it doesn't pile up inside of the creases, so I dab it with a little brush. Just a hint of red. Inside the nose there's always red as well. And as you see in the little, what is it called? Here it's a bit more red. And also around the lips you can see the darker type of color. There is a little bit of red in there as well. So it's around the lips. Make sure the white little line, as you see in here, that you don't paint the white little line. Only around the lips. So not on the white line, but do paint the corners of the mouth. I see on top of the nose a little bit of red as well. And we're going to dab it. And the inside of the eyes, make sure you really paint inside of the kit, because if there is a piece that is not red, you will see that when the eyes get in. So the inside of the eyes. And then again, on top of this eyelid, except for the middle where there is the light, where the light hits, it's more red and pinkish as well. So also in that edge. And underneath the eyes I can see pink as well. And you see that it's barely visible, but somehow this already gives a little bit of depth. And I can see that on top of the cheeks, in this picture is not very visible, but there is a little bit of pink too. Just the middle of the cheeks. You see? We're dabbing it because it's not one color. Skin is not one color. So we get a little bit of depth by dabbing it on. See? This will already give a little bit of depth. I hope it's visible on camera. So this baby has a little chin fold. The folds that are deep are close to the blood vessels. So they're darker. That's why we paint them red. And we can see that this forehead is reddish as well. But be sure to not paint this part, because here you can see that this little part, I can see some blue and some yellow in it, but not that much red. So I see I still have a lot of Naphthol Crimson, but not a lot of Nails Red anymore. So 50% Naphthol Crimson and 50% Nails Red. And then again, grab some matte medium and mix it thoroughly. Red is a very visible color. So with red, we might even have to use more matte medium compared to the blue, so it's not too bright. So we're going to drag the matte medium towards the red, and again be sure to mix it thoroughly so you don't get stripes and blotches. So it needs to be perfectly one color. So again, let's try out the translucency. Oh, this is perfect. So let's do that again. I see a little bit of hair. You don't want a hair. All right. So we're starting at the sides again. Then we go, and remember there was this little circle in here that was not red. So we're painting the rest of the face. Before I continue, I noticed that the sides are already drying up a little and we don't want stripes. So I'm first going to dab and blend the color right before continuing the rest of the forehead. Yes, let's continue. So we've painted the front, and now we're going to paint the back as well. Make sure to make long stripes and don't have too much paint on your brush. When you have too much paint, you can easily get weird blotches, because then it will dry up not very even, and we don't want that. So don't push too hard when you're dabbing, because then you'll take all the paint off, and we don't want that. And remember that, as you can see in the reference picture, the neck is darker than the rest of the face. So we're going to make that red as well. Darker, but a rich brown tone. So that's why we can use red. And then we dab it. Like we did with the blue, we're going to do the inside of the ears as well, because they have a rich brown tone too. And we can use the exact color as we had. And the first few layers are a matter of trust the process, because you don't see a lot of progress, but these thin layers actually make a lot of sense when we go and continue, because these are going to make sure the depth is all right. So we still have some, oh, I accidentally touched the face. We still have some red left, and you know, let's have another layer. So one on the lips, and remember it must be very, very translucent. So if your layer has been a little thicker, then skip this. And inside the nose, and again the inside of the eyes. And yes, the first layers take a lot of time, but they're actually very important. And remember, underneath the eyes it was a little bit more red as well. Before getting to our next layer, grab a wand tip and take a very good look, close look, up close, if you can find any hairs, and take them out. Any hair or dust or anything, take them out with your wand tips. It's not always very easy, but this is important because the dust could dry up and then you'll have little things in there. So we've done the big darker areas with blue, and then we've gone over with red and did a little glaze on the lips with red as well. So now it's time to go and paint the things that are deepest under the skin, which are the veins and the capillaries. We're starting with the veins, and after that we're going to create a hint of the capillaries through modeling. This is our reference photo, and this is a blurred photo taken with a phone, which means that it doesn't show a lot of the veins. So I'm going to use some other reference photo to explain to you where the veins lay, and then we can recognize them in this picture. So I'm going to teach you a rule about veins. Do you see the veins in my skin? When I stretch out my hand, you can see a lot of bluish veins visible through the skin. But when I crunch my hand, or when I bend my hand, you cannot see them anymore because the skin above it is thick. So be aware with the parts of the face that are stretched out, because there you will see more of the veins, and the parts of the skin that are bended. The rule of pigment is the opposite, but first let's focus on veins. I show this with my skin because I barely have any pigment in my skin. I'm very light. First of all, I'm going to show you this picture. And in this picture you can see a very visible vein in between the eyes. So as you can see at the picture at the side, it goes somewhere here. And if we zoom in, we can see a little vein in here. And we can see a vein in there. And we can see a blue vein in there. So you're searching for blue veins. You can see a vein in here, and you can see a vein in there. You can see that on top of the head there are more veins, especially in the areas where the skin is thinner around the eyes and at the sides of the forehead. You can see that the little cheeks, you can't really see the veins because, just like I explained to you, the skin is coming together, so you don't see a lot of veins. But you see the bluish tones more in here as well. Right now I'm going to show you a baby with a little bit darker skin. If we zoom in on the head, we see a tiny bluish vein in here. We can see a vein in here. We can see a vein on top of the eye. And we can see some hint of veining here. And we also see bluish here, which is a hint of veining. And I see a vein in here. What you can learn from this picture and the other picture is that veins are not straight lined, first of all. They're also not like lightning, very with sharp edges, but part of them are visible, and then a little bit isn't visible, and then again some parts of them are visible again. Okay, so in this picture the veins are not really visible, but the hint of the veins are visible, like I just explained. And we've looked at the other pictures to position some of them. So as you can see now, we can see a bit of a darker area in here, which can imply a vein. I see a bit of a darker here, which could be a vein. I see something in here, which could imply vein. And some bluer areas in there, and some blue areas in here, and we've seen that there are some important veins in between the eyebrows as well. And when I look closely, I see some bluish here, and on the other side it's actually a bit too dark to see, but because it's a blurry picture, we're going to use other reference photos to imply where some of the veins are. I also see something in here when I look at it now, and here. So we know that the things that we just showed, we're going to paint these. And again, they are just a hint of the veins. They're not like straight lines with sharp edges. Let's get started. Because the veins are supposed to be just hints, we are going to use the tip of our big brush. when we in the end go and make some details in the very end, we can use a thinner brush to make the super thin ones. But first, for now, we're going to use this brush. Grab a little drop of matte medium and a little drop of blue. It's better to paint too light so you can paint over it again and then painting too dark. But since this baby has a dark skin tone, you're going to paint your veins a little darker as you would with a Caucasian baby. So let's try. Okay, well, this is a little bit too dark still. Okay, this is better. So you can see, and you can also try if you're not sure about how thin you can go. But with this, you can see with this brush, you can get thin enough to make a nice little vein. Let's start with the biggest vein, and remember it's not a straight line, so we're going to squiggle it down. I don't know if it's visible. I'll make it a little darker just for on camera, but make sure it's just barely visible, because in the reference photo we also don't see the very big veins. So squiggle it down. Okay, now you've squiggled it, we're going to dab it on some places, not on all, so that they're not just as bright in every place. I can see that the vein goes toward the other eyebrows as well, so make it a little wiggly and again dab it. I hope it's visible enough. So this is what you get. Okay, let's go to the other one on the forehead, which is here. Somewhere here, and it has a bit of a cross. The exact position is not very important, but it's about the idea of veins. I see something here as well. They're more like tiny little rivers. So they're not like lightning edgy with sharp edges, but they're more like little rivers that flow their way. Okay, I can see something in here as well. Let's put it to the side and wiggle it down here, and something here. And let's go to the other side. We mostly saw something in the edge of the eye. So, and then dab it again. All right, that is the veins we've got here. So in here we see that there is some bluish thing in here, and we're going to add that too. Almost like in the middle of the nose. So with Sarah, you can see there is a little bit the idea of a vein in here, just as I just made here. And oh yeah, I see a little suggestion of a bluish vein in here. But it's okay to use your fantasy together with other reference photos to combine and make a nice painting. I see that in here as well. So we still have some blue left, and let's not waste it. Let's think about some dark areas that we can make blue. We're going to paint the place where the hole inside the ear is blue, so that already gets darker. It's like there is a hole, but there isn't. We're going to paint the suggestion of a hole. Make sure don't paint the outside of the ear, just inside it. All right, so I still have some blue left, So let's get to the darkest parts as we did in the first video. So inside of the nose, and I see now it's not very blended. Amazing. We're blending it with a brush, a dry brush. I can see here the sides of the nose are a bit darker as well. And we still have the blue. So why am I using a brush to blend and not a sponge? It's because the sponge isn't small enough to reach here, and I feel like I have more control over my brush. Inside of the mouth, where the lips touch each other, it's more blue. So again, blend it out. And as you can see here in the corners of the mouth, it's darker. So we're looking at dark and light right now, and not really at the tone, but dark and light. Underneath the lips, it's darker too. So we're going to get over that again, to paint over that again. Since we have some left, let's do the eyelids as well. Let's finish it and paint the inside of the ears. The deepest part of the ears are darker, as you can see in the picture. And then blend it again with your dry brush. And let's go over it on the other side as well. The inside of the ears, just as you can see in the picture. So this is why your reference picture is extremely important. You don't want to be guessing. So this is the veins layer. The fourth and final layer of this lesson is the hint of capillaries. Capillaries are those tiny little smaller veins. So these are main big veins, and they spread out in tiny capillaries. As you can see in my hand, the skin is not one tone. If you look closely, there is white and red. It's also almost like my skin is filled with red and white and green and yellowish spots. See that? It's not one color white. So that's what we're going to suggest, and that is what we call modeling. But this is not fine modeling, but this is rough modeling, because this is underneath the skin. Let's start with our rough modeling layer. You are going to need Naphthol Crimson and Phthalo Blue. We're going to make a light purple, which is more on the bluest side than it is on the red side. Let me show you. We still have some blue and we have some red. So let's get some blue and some red together and make a nice little purple. But I wanted the purple more on the bluish side, just like that. And then we're going to add our matte medium. So again, 95% matte medium with only 5% of paint of the little purple you made. Let's check our translucency before we start. Okay, that is too dark. So let's add a little bit more medium. I also want more because we're going to do the back of the head as well. So a lot of medium and just a tiny bit of paint. And that is going to be too red again. Yes, there we are. So you want it to be very translucent. For this layer, when it comes to modeling, it doesn't really matter if the paint isn't blended enough, because we want to create depth anyway. So let's get paint on the top of our brush and start just the way we did with the darker part, with the sides of the forehead, and make sure to sponge it in between sections, because if you don't, it will dry up very quickly. We're just going to dab little dots And you should not overthink this, it's just dotting. You need to dab in between because we don't want it to dry like this. It's not going to be an alien, of course. So when we sponge it, you can see how depth already starts forming. Okay, then the middle part of the forehead. And again, sponge in between. I prefer to do modeling with my brushes, so I can control wherever it goes. Some people use sponges that they make holes in, but I want to have control. So just like this, and it will bring depth to your doll. And you know, all of this is a matter of trusting the process, because of course there's going to be many skin layers on top of this. Do you see how all of a sudden the doll starts to come to life? We will do the same with the cheeks. So first one cheek. There we go. And then blend it in. Now you might see that it already starts to look like a baby, even though we haven't even started the real skin color layers yet. This is why depth is important before color, at least in my method. Okay, then we're going to do the chin. Turn your baby around. So the chin, and don't forget the neck. But first blending and then the neck. Make sure that you blend very, very well so that the edges of your modeling aren't visible anymore. Okay, before we do the neck itself, we're going to do the rest of the head. Just the same as you did before. And you can see I do this more roughly. Because I root all of my dolls, so it's not really visible in the first place. But we do want some depth on the whole head too. If you plan on keeping your doll bald, I would advise to make the dots as small as you did on the face itself. Okay, and then we should do the neck. If there is dust or dirt or hair on your doll, you could also get that out with your wand tip in between layers, like I demonstrated in the beginning of this video. Don't forget the neck. You notice that I hold the doll in my fingers, in between my fingers. Some people like to put it on a stand or something. That is possible as well, but I like to have control over the edge in which I hold the doll. So this makes it easiest for me. Plus, you don't want to touch the doll with your fingers too much, because that will leave fingerprints. All right. Do you see now that the doll really has some depth in it in just a few little layers? How special. I do still have some purple left. The baby's lips do have purple in them. The top lip is the darkest, so just do the top lip as first. So just the lip, the top lip, and the sides of the bottom lip, because in between it's more reddish. So just the sides of the bottom lip. So with what we have left, we are going to go over all of the dark areas as we did in the beginning. Inside of the nose, inside the ear where the hole comes, and that's it for now. Before you stop, always go over with your wand tip and get out all of the hair you can find. Okay, that's it. You've made a start on your reborn doll of color. You have mapped out the darkest part, you have made the basic depth, and you started on the veins and the capillaries. So how amazing is that? If you have learned something new today, and if you want to get notified when the next video comes, hit the notification bell and subscribe to our channel. If you want to be part of the community and you want to get the ebook as well, please send your email to this email address. Of course, this doll is not finished. It doesn't look like a finished doll with beautiful dark skin. So in the next video, I'm going to teach you everything on how to build a beautiful, rich brown skin tone. You don't want to miss that. If you have watched the video all the way through and you have made it this far, comment in the comment section the secret phrase, "I love dolls," and so we'll know who already watched the whole video. Okay, I cannot wait to continue this painting lesson with you to make the beautiful Eritrean reborn doll after my dear friend Sarah. Let's continue. Bye!